and render.
Jwlar.
Between emails, Discord messages, YouTube comments and Patreon questions, quite a few people have asked along the lines of, I want to make videos like yours, where do I start? I usually answer in a series of paragraphs, but a more easily digestible visual medium will probably be better, and it lets me just link this video in the future. To preface, I'm a semi-professional YouTuber at best, and while I have tried a variety of content over the years, what I'm most known for is extremely long-form content that focuses on analysing a single topic to its absolute limit. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I'm confident in what I do. Most critically, if you're watching this as a guide, it should serve only as a basis for your own creative process. We're all different and my methods may not work best for you. Video creation, as with any creative expression, needs to be developed by yourself over a long period of time, but at least this video can serve as a stepping stone. As you'll soon see, much of my advice comes from learning the hard way via many mistakes. My own process was inspired by a similar 6-year-old video from Mandalore Gaming, which I highly recommend if you're only interested in making shorter review-style videos. Inadvertently, this video will be similar to Mandalore's, as my process is inspired by his. Also, I won't go into technical depth on video or image editing software, as there are already many more in-depth tutorials online for that, but I will give some guidance on what I do. Right, disclaimers out of the way, we start at the beginning, idea generation. If you're here, you probably want to know how to analyze video games. You will spend weeks to months deeply thinking about just one, so make sure it's something you love, or at least one you have something to say about. Whether it's criticizing the game or highlighting its strengths, you need to be passionate about it. It'll be easier to formulate your opinions and stay motivated if it's something you have strong feelings about. You probably have a few ideas that meet that criteria. From there, it's time for cursory research to ensure that this is a project you really want to embark on. I enjoy being a digital archaeologist, spending hours scouring the archives of old magazines to find even the most minor mentions of the game I'm covering. So for me, it's important that the game isn't already over-researched. That was the mistake I made with Diablo. It was a smaller game, only around 20 hours long if you play every class, so I thought it should have been a dawdle compared to the larger games I had covered previously. Yet the Wikipedia entry should have been a warning that so much information was already available. This may not seem like a bad thing, the more sources available the more accurate the end result will be, but if covering everything there is to know is the goal, as it is with my complete retrospective series, then this leads to a lot more work. From reading and watching hundreds of hours of interviews, to parsing pieces that have already accomplished what I was seeking to do, just in a different medium. The ideal project for me has a Wikipedia page with 30 or fewer listed sources, as this is a game that likely has some online presence, providing a decent foundation for our own research without being too time-consuming. So you have the game you're passionate about, and you know that there isn't a ridiculous amount of background work needed to bolster your arguments sufficiently. Now it's time for the fun part, playing the game, with two goals in mind. First, to gather the recorded footage needed for the video itself, and second, for note-taking. As you're passionate about the topic, you likely already have an abundance of talking points floating around in your head. Still, it can be challenging to get that all down on paper without a driving force, which is why taking these notes as you play the game will help later when it comes to writing. I use the note-taking program Obsidian, but others exist like Notion. These are perfect for parsing your ideas into relevant topics, which can then be linked together wiki-style. I've uploaded my Starfield notes to GitHub if you want an idea of how this works. As you play the game, whenever an idea jumps to mind, pause the game, switch over to your notes, whether on your phone or PC, and write it down. Remember to break them into sections to make scripting easier later on. For example, let's say you're playing a level of Star Wars Dark Forces. You may want to have a topic page for the level in question, i.e. the Death Star plans level. Here, any point relevant to this level can be written down, like how it's iconic, used as the game's demo, serves as our introduction to the main character, and introduces the main enemy types. But let's say you also want to discuss controls. Finding that information later may be difficult if it's hidden on a page about the game's first level, so let's make a new page just for controls. Then whenever a new idea regarding the controls comes to mind, you can put it on that page rather than wherever you may be in the game at that time. This page can then be linked to when discussing level-specific control problems to aid in joined-up thinking. I know this sounds a bit confusing, but having just spilt my mental drivel onto a page with no rhyme or reason in the past, organising my thoughts this way has been paramount in writing more comprehensive and well thought out scripts. It's far easier to find a relevant note this way, compared to searching through a 30,000 word long document with Ctrl F. While this note taking is happening, the game is also being recorded. There are a few free options here, but I usually use OBS or Nvidia's game recording feature, whichever works best with the game. Some retro games just hate being recorded, usually due to differences in resolutions between your screen's native setting and whatever the game prefers to run at, so in those cases you may be forced to run the game in a window. I split my recordings via the relevant parts of the game, say a quest line or a level, starting the recording just before said section begins and only hitting stop once it's finished. If something peculiar happens that I may wish to reference in the script, say a specific bug or complex puzzle, I will take the file name and put it next to the relevant note, i.e. there's a bunny rabbit Easter egg on the ice planet, see the first few minutes of Mission 8 iceplanet.mp4. These recording/note-taking sessions are surprisingly tiring. Let's not pretend that making a YouTube video is akin to hard labour though, as some people on YouTube might think. Compared to real jobs, which I still have, this is a piece of cake as it's entirely self-driven, which is where discipline is essential. I'm a creative designer/graphics communicator by trade, and while I mostly work from home now, it still takes up a large proportion of my day, leaving only the afternoon and evenings for YouTube. Between other hobbies, friends, and family life, that time gets smaller and smaller, so make sure this is something you can accommodate. Forms of self-motivation are highly person-dependent, but this is what works for me. Gantt charts are key. You can find free project management courses online if you need help with them. And note that it may take you a few videos to learn what a realistic time frame for each section of the process may be. My advice is to always add 20%. If howlongtobeat.com says the game is 10 hours long, assume it will take you 15 hours for note-taking. In this case, let's round up to 20 hours for game recording. If we can realistically apply an average of 2 hours a day to this task, including weekends, that's 10 days just on this section. This may seem disconcerting, but believe me, lying to oneself and thinking, oh I can knock that out in 3 days if I want, will only lead to more delays. It's better to think it will take 10 days and be pleased when it's done in 7 than to go with the alternative of consistently letting yourself down. With a few thousand words of notes and the game recorded, if you're only making a review, you should be ready to write from here, but for in-depth analysis, we need oodles of research to strengthen our points. Starting with that Wikipedia page. Read it to get an overview of the game, but don't take any notes, you won't do yourself any favours to start plagiarising from an overview. Instead, scroll down to the sources and use these as your primary forms of information, to begin with at least. Much of this is going to be rehashing what you probably learnt in school for essay writing, but it's still relevant here. Read the sources and start making notes. If the source is extra juicy, consider giving it its own page in your note-taking application. Interviews are great for this. While watching a video interview, a developer may mention how they really struggled when creating a level you hate. Write down what they say and link it to that level page. Click through to the page, find the section where you mention how this level feels poorly designed, and link back to that interview about how the devs agree. Boom, through the magic of your research, your personal opinion is now backed by the creators themselves. Or you could find a compelling argument somewhere else that disagrees with your opinion, in turn forming the basis of a section where you battle that source, or even consider those points and admit that it helped sway you. While note-taking these sources, consider what stories can be written and how they can aid in your writing later on. You're making a creative piece at the end of the day. A silly segment pointing out how a reviewer thought the game was bad because of a lack of skill may add some humour to your video. When it comes to finding more research, I'll link below a standard protocol I made for myself so I don't forget, but it essentially comes down to googling relevant terms and reading every result to try to find something new. starting with just the game's name and then trying combinations like the name of the lead designer alongside the game's name to see if there are any hidden interviews that Google's terrible search engine is hiding. You can try other search engines like DuckDuckGo as well, as these tend not to be as AI polluted or full of sponsored results. Still, for whatever reason, when it comes to older games, sometimes Google is the one that will pull some random archived interview from an ancient website, whereas another search engine may overlook it. By now, your notes are probably entering the 5-figure word count or more, and it's time to dive into the most significant time sink, for me at least. For some, it may be editing, and it depends on the style of editing you're looking to use and your previous skill set. As you've been spending the last 2 to 3 weeks or so becoming an expert on this specific game, you likely have some idea of how you want to present the video, so write it down as an outline, whether it's to open on a grand statement or lay out a series of questions you hope to answer and how you wish to answer them. I.e., will the script follow the progression of the game level by level, or will it separate the game into its constituent parts and analyze them separately? There are quite a few methods and none of them are wrong, nor is there a formula. Some games may work with one method but not the other, and vice versa. Once the outline is complete, all that is left is to fill it in. The advice I have here is to constantly refer to your notes and to write as if you're speaking. That may be hard, but you aren't creating a boring essay here, unless that's going to be your shtick. This is for an audience, and more importantly, you'll need to read it out loud, so write in a way that feels natural. You may get an F if you submitted it for school, but that's not a concern here. Have fun with it, add some jokes or sarcasm, be sassy if that fits the section, and if an editing joke or skit comes to mind, write it down. That way you won't forget it and it's already in the relevant part of the script for reference when it comes to editing. Never set a length goal, as the last thing you want to do for pacing is overinflate your word count. If anything, work the other way around, write to your heart's content and then try to make it more concise to fit a better timecode. For example, my original Part 2 Starfield draft came in at an estimated 6 hours and 25 minutes, so I cut it down to 6 hours flat to make it look nicer. YouTube then added a random second out of nowhere, but there you go. For video length estimations, I use wordstotime.com, which isn't entirely accurate but close enough. I've found that around 10,500 words is 60 minutes of recorded audio, depending on how hyperactive I was that day. Be warned, drinking a coffee before an audio session can make a difference here. Speaking of, recording audio is much harder than you may think. For me anyway. It's only in the last 3 videos on my channel that I feel happy with my own. Everyone's voice is different, as are our rooms, and what may work for one person certainly doesn't work for someone else. Let's not sugarcoat it. If you want to make a long-form analysis video, you're making second monitor content. The video is still essential, every so often people may look over to it, so the editing has to be relevant, but at the end of the day, you're making a podcast first. KISS is important here. It's entirely possible to watch way too many tutorials on normalization, compressors, EQ, and all sorts of audio filters and end with a result that is worse and more irritating to listen to than the raw audio was. YouTube itself will usually compress the audio anyway to hit its standards, unless you turn off a hidden away setting in the YouTube Studio backend. Don't take the bait and think you need a Shure SM7B, a basic USB microphone is more than enough to get you started. Over time you can invest in better equipment, certainly by moving up to XLR mics with dedicated audio interfaces which do a better job of converting analog audio into clean digital signals. Still, unless your mic is unlistenable, people are willing to put aside minor issues if the content is good. Most important is sound treatment. You can remove reverb from a boxy room in post, but it's easier to eliminate it at the source. On a budget, you can record your audio in a wardrobe or clothing cupboard, or place as much clothing around the room as possible, especially if you have hardwood floors. I put a large blanket on mine when I record. Foam is cheap and works well for filling in the corners too. There are more in-depth videos from voice actors for this, but when it comes to positioning, place the microphone 6 to 10 inches from your mouth and off to the side to minimize plosives and mouth noises. If you have an exceptionally smacky mouth like me, probably caused by my short tongue or accent, then post-processing effects like a click remover will be a godsend. I use Adobe Audition with RX11 plugins. But on a budget, Audacity is free and more than enough for a beginner's needs, especially with its noise reduction effect for eliminating fan noise. As long as you have no annoying background noise, no echo, and clear audio, that's more than enough to get started. Subtle use of EQ and compressors can push things up a notch. Even then though, without professional grade monitoring equipment like flat profile headphones, you can find yourself ruining what was otherwise a perfectly fine voiceover. To make the audio experience more interesting, you're going to want to add back in some background noise, such as low volume gameplay and some music. Make sure to monitor the levels as you go and adjust as needed. Music that is too loud will obscure your voice and require too much mental effort to listen to. Depending on your editing software, you should be able to open an audio level visualizer. I find that music hovering around the -20 to -25 decibel mark is the sweet spot, and for gameplay, depending on how chaotic it gets, around -30 dB. It's contingent on your own voice, so play around with it and see what works best. You'll be doing that last part while editing, the most intimidating part for many. The best free software is by far DaVinci Resolve. It isn't intuitive for someone entirely new to non-linear editing software, but as it's built to industry standards and just as capable as Adobe's Premiere Pro, you will find that the only limiting factor to your creativity will be time and skill rather than the software's capabilities. Also, it doesn't come with a predatory monthly subscription, so that's always good. This is where the magic happens. Start a project at the resolution and frame rate you prefer, remembering that higher quality is more taxing on your system, then create some folders, drop in your footage and voiceover, and you're underway. This is important by the way, searching for a specific image or clip will be a breeze with some decent organization. Dragging the audio onto the timeline, I like to edit down the voiceover right here, cutting out bad takes, breath noises, and any extended periods of dead air. As I go, I'm reading along with the written script to ensure there aren't any errors that need to be re-recorded, and adding section cutoffs to mark where each section starts and ends. In Resolve, I do this with markers, using coloured ones to denote flubbed lines, visual gags, or certain sources. Usually this takes about 2.5 times as long as the final video. So for a 1 hour video, the recording will take around an hour and 45 minutes, and cutting it down to an hour will take 2.5 to 3 hours, which is nothing compared to the time it takes to place the video itself. It depends on your standards, but the bare minimum is ensuring that whatever video you've dragged in is relevant to what is being spoken about. Doing that will take far more time than you may think. It's easy for a so-called simple edit to take days. This time sync only increases when adding title cards, graphics, and so on. At optimal speed, I can edit 5 to 8 minutes of finished video in around an hour, but that's only after years of experience. When I started, it was common for that to be closer to 1 to 3 minutes per hour. The two methods I would recommend trying are the one and done and the traditional kinds. One and done is often slower in the long run but feels more natural and leads to fewer mistakes, while the traditional method is far more efficient. One and done is as it says, you edit the video to a finalized standard as you go, dropping in relevant footage, adding transitions, sound effects and music, adjusting audio levels and creating the necessary graphics as needed. This results in a slower minute per hour work ratio, but it means that once you hit the end of your voiceover, you know you're done and only need to watch it back once to check for any errors. Time is often wasted here when looking for footage or deliberating over minor details that may not matter in the long run. The traditional method is how I was taught in university, and at that time how TV documentaries were made, although I can't say whether that still holds true. This method is based on stages or passes. Pass 1 is dropping in A-roll footage, which is footage that is relevant to the voiceover and it's chosen and placed in a non-specific manner. By which I mean, rather than listening to the voiceover, hearing that a specific enemy is being discussed and then finding footage of said enemy, the voiceover is split into sections based on the script. For example, let's say minutes 1 to 12 cover level 1, so I'm gonna drop in the level 1 footage indiscriminately and move on. This ignores any specific talking points in that section, since I haven't even listened to it, I'm just working off the script. I then do the same for each section in turn, until the first pass is done, and within a much shorter time span, I have what could technically count as a YouTube video. It's far worse edited than it could have been, but if push comes to shove, it can be released, and for many people, the difference would be marginal. When it comes to hitting deadlines, editing this way is a godsend for reducing stress, as you will know that in the worst case scenario, something is ready to be released if needed. The second pass is where the quality is added. I listen to the audio and layer on the applicable B-roll footage where needed to help bolster the points made in the voiceover, as well as adding in title cards, graphic cards, visual gags, transitions, and so on, culminating in the third pass, which is for music and audio levels. I place the music where it makes sense, then watch the video again and adjust the levels to achieve a perfectly balanced final piece. All in all, the traditional method feels more formulaic and allows less creativity, but the time saved is noticeable even if it is only a few hours. From there, you need only hit render and start uploading it to YouTube, where it all comes down to the video's branding. The thumbnail and title annoyingly equates to the success of the video as much, if not more than, the video's quality itself, as the abundant clickbait on YouTube will prove. For thumbnails, I use Affinity Photo because it was the closest to Photoshop in a single paid package. However, the company behind the software, Serif, has since been acquired by Canva, and I am unacquainted with the new version they offer. Apparently, the software is now available entirely for free, with a subscription only needed for AI tools, so take from that what you will. Use whatever you're comfortable with, as I'm actually the least informed about free, easy to use alternatives here since I've been in the professional Adobe controlled space for going on 14 years. I know that GIMP has a strong cult following. My advice is to learn how to steal like an artist. Note though, that doesn't mean plagiarizing. It's an idea taught by Austin Kleon which was driven into me during university and is the foundation for many younger designers, at least the ones I've worked with. You can get the gist from the Wikipedia page. It basically boils down to the idea that creative works build on what came before, thus nothing is entirely original. To create a good thumbnail, you need to study, remix, mash up, and transform other good thumbnails and pieces of art you've seen before. As you scroll through your homepage or subscriptions page, take screenshots of pieces you like, as well as any other works. It could be some packaging or a magazine cover, a website header, or even a poster. Create a folder of works you like and use this as a basis. Take design cues and look for any patterns. For example, a massive face off to the side was the YouTube meta for a while, so emulating that with game characters worked well for me. Design and its trends are ever-changing though, so try to stay ahead of the curve. To be honest however, as long as the thumbnail stands out amongst similar videos and is eye-catching enough, it can still be successful even without a quote-unquote professional standard. For the title, I keep it as short as possible. Just explain what the video is and move on. You may want to consider clickbaity terms like XYZ is crazy or whatever the latest fad may be, but I prefer to keep it simple. Finally, there's the subtitles. I make these by splitting my script into individual sentences, copying this into Notepad to create a .txt file, and then uploading it to YouTube. This results in far better accuracy compared to YouTube's automatic system for only an extra hour or so of effort. And that's it. From start to finish, that's my personal process for creating video analyses. Hopefully that was helpful for those of you who were interested, or illuminated for those watching out of curiosity. Thanks for watching.